Hello, it's John Heaton. I'm back after a summer break, and today I'm happy to say I'm going to be talking about the ultimate music guide for Ringo Starr, having had the ultimate music guide for John Lennon, for Paul McCartney, George Harrison. Now we have the complete set, Ringo, and this covers his work with the Beatles, his drumming, his entire solo career, and his film work, together with articles on various rarities, some interviews, a particularly interesting interview from 1971, and a few others, and in the usual style, detailed album reviews, as it quite amusingly says on the front here, Beaucoups of reviews. Pun on the title, Beaucoups of Blues, and then each album given a two-page review with the ranking of the tracks, the normal format, as with all of these ultimate music guides. If you're a fan, don't expect to agree with the rankings. They're quite provocative in some cases. They're quite surprising in other cases, and a little bit outrageous in some cases. What can I say? We're never going to agree on that. But, having said that, this particular ultimate music guide for Lennon, when it ranked the Imagine album, it gave the title track 3 stars, which is inexplicable. Anyway, we're not talking about that, we're talking about Ringo. So the first thing to say about this, well, extremely well written reviews, very good standard of writing. They get a different guy to review each album, which makes it kind of unique in its own right. I'm not sure how they pick who gets to review which album, but it works having a different reviewer. So I'm not sure if these guys are freelance or they all work for Uncut. But anyway, David Quantick does the review of Sentimental Journey, and it's an excellent review. I'm happy to say he reappraises it. He gives it the credit that I think it deserves. And this and Beaucoups of Blues are about the best reviewed albums of his entire career, and I think that's very refreshing because both of them highly underrated. And although Ringo and Goodnight Vienna were bigger hits chart-wise and singles-wise, the singles off those albums, I think these early two albums have a particular charm of their own. And Thomas Calden, I know you would agree, you said because you think any album which came out in 1970 kind of still has the magic aura of the Beatles, and I think there's some truth to that. This pub in Liverpool, by the way, the Empress pub, at the top of the road where Ringo lived, he wasn't really standing in front of it on the album cover. That was photoshopped in. If you go to Liverpool and go on any one of those bus tours, you'll be driven past this pub. It's not a stop. They don't stop and let you get off. So next time I go to Liverpool, I'm going to make a specific journey, and I'm going to go to this pub and I'm going to have a drink in this pub. Although apparently it's in quite a rough area of Liverpool called Liverpool 8, which Ringo named. It was the area he grew up in. Quite a working class area, but I'm going to risk it. I'm going to go and have a couple of drinks. I nearly did last time, but the bus didn't stop, as I said. So quite generous marks for this album. 4 stars, Sentimental Journey, Night and Day, Whispering Grass, Bye Bye Blackbird, and Stardust. And Have I Told You Lately, and Let the Rest of the World Go By. And nothing less than a 3. And particularly on the last track, it says, on the final song, Let the Rest of the World Go By, arranged fact fans by Tom Jones's songwriter Les Reed. His voice is light and charming in a way that only Ringo Starr can manage, and I've always loved that track. It's great to hear someone else say how good they think it is. David Quantick, this guy who wrote the review, he did a book on the White Album, and he also did this piece at the end here. And it's that book that you found annoying, James Griffiths, because it had quite a few errors in it. But it had its moments as well. I seem to remember as a book. But this review is well written. I like it. Just before I continue, a little bit sloppily edited. I think I pointed out in the last one, the Beatles vinyl guide, although that's not made by Uncut, I don't think. That was a bit sloppily edited. And here, there's a few errors, like later on in the, not for the Ringo album review, but later on when they're saying which albums George guested on or something, they credit the Ringo album as 1971. When clearly it's 1973, they say George Martin brought in a drummer for the Love Me Do session by the name of Andy Martin, which was a clear error. It's Andy White. And then for the review of Goodnight Vienna, they rather strangely say, and Back Off Boogaloo, which unfortunately wasn't included in the original lineup. Well, the reason it wasn't included in the original lineup because it came 2.5 years before the album, and the reason that writer, I forget who it was, made the mistake is David Quantick again. Anyway, that Back Off Boogaloo was included as a bonus track on the Goodnight Vienna CD, so maybe he thought it was from the same era. And that probably explains why someone thought Ringo came from 71, because it includes It Don't Come Easy as a bonus track. So anyway, I'm making excuses for these guys, because they may have not grown up with the original vinyl, that's fair enough, but I thought I'd point out the mistake. One other minor criticism, they say Richard Perry produced a track on Sentimental Journey, which is true, or arranged a track, and then would go on to be Ringo's main producer throughout the 70s. Not quite true, because he only produced 2 albums, Ringo and Goodnight Vienna. Anyway, having said that, that's all my criticism. It's fairly minor criticism. This is well written, and Bo Coops of Blues, Erin Osman gets the honours for this one. And another very, very pleasing review. And this album has long been underrated. I think Bob Woofenden, in the book The Beatles Apart, was one of the few who recognised that it is one of the very best Beatles solo albums. And I'm saying that, I think, somewhat objectively, because his voice fits country music like a glove. And they give 5 stars to the title track. They give 4 to Love Don't Last Long, fastest growing heartache in the West. $15 draw, I'd be talking all the time, Wine, Women and Loud Hippie Songs, I Wouldn't Have You Any Other Way, all 4 stars, Losers Lounge 4 stars. And then the bonus track's Coochie Coochie and Nashville Jam, also 4 stars. Now they do have it in for Woman of the Night, they give it 1 star. Which, it's a bit of a recurring criticism of mine. This magazine tends to be a little bit judgmental when a song has what they perceive to be dodgy lyrics, and because this song is about a prostitute, she's a woman of the night and I love her, although I love my silver wouldn't buy. I think it's quite a charming lyric, but this magazine thinks it's tired, old-fashioned, slut-shaming. I don't agree, but anyway, 1 star for that one. So then, as I said, a very interesting interview from 1971. And then I'm going to read you what he says about, he's asked about Plastic Ono Band, he says it's fantastic. He's asked about All Things Must Pass, he says it's fantastic. I've asked you about the albums of John and George, what about Paul's? I feel sad with Paul's albums, says Ringo, because I believe he's a great artist, incredibly creative, incredibly clever, and he disappoints me on his albums. I don't think there's one tune on the last one, Ram. There's a couple of lines, that's all. It's too tricky for me. I just feel he's wasted his time. It's just the way I feel. I think it's such a pity that he doesn't get in there and do what I think he can do, and I'm sure he knows he can do. He seems to be going strange. It's like he's not admitting he can write great tunes. He wants to do a tricky, rocky thing, which he can do anyway. I mean, Paul is fantastic, but he won't admit to the nice tunes he can write. I don't know. It just seems to me that he's getting a bit ashamed of them. He's trying to have another image. He picks the image of his choice, I just feel he's let me down. Well, that's fascinating, if for no other reason that people at the time perceived Ram completely differently to how they perceive it today. and that may be wrapped up in the split, probably is wrapped up in the split, or one's expectations of Paul after the monumental Abbey Road. I don't know what it was, but these days people don't pick holes in Ram at all. They think it's charming, homegrown, relaxing, innovative, quirky material, top drawer, and I agree. So just thought I'd read you that because it's interesting. Comes to the Ringo album, which most people think is a 5-star album. The only track they give 5 stars, Photograph. They give only 3 to I'm the Greatest and Have You Seen My Baby, both of which deserve at least 4 in my opinion. Sunshine Life for me too, that's okay. You're 16, again, because of the so-called dodgy lyrics, they give it 2-star. I don't agree with that. Oh My, only 3. Step Lightly, only 3. 6 O'Clock, 3. Devil Woman, 3. You and Me, 3. Stingy. It should have been 4, 4, 4, all that throughout side 2, in my opinion. So, inexplicable really, but anyway, it's all a matter of taste, I suppose. And then Goodnight Vienna, 4 tracks for the title track. 4 tracks for No No Song. Snookeroo, 4. Goodnight Vienna Reprise, 4, and the rest 3, with the exception of Call Me 2. And then they slag off Rotograve for the most part. I don't think there's one 4-star. There's one Cooking they give a 4-star to, and Lady Gay at the end. The rest of it. Oh, and Hey Baby they give 4 to. So it's not a complete disaster. Ringo the Fourth, they're pretty harsh on. It's not the critics' favourite album. It's not the best cover. They say he looks awful on the cover. And he doesn't look great, I must say. He's in the middle of his drinking period. But, this album is top-notch musicians playing on it. Steve Gadd, Dave Spinoza, Richard T, I think, is on it. So I enjoy it. And Bad Boy, thankfully, Mean Mr. May, you'll be happy with this. They're pretty generous and pretty it's a good review. Who Needs a Heart, 4 stars. Lipstick Traces, 4 stars. Only 2 4 stars. But only 3 2 stars and the rest 3. So put it this way, it's better than I was expecting. I was pleasantly surprised. Now the one other criticism, they don't rank Stop and Smell the Roses or Old Wave at all. They talk about it, but they don't rank it. And then Ringo in the 90s, they talk about Time Takes Time quite favourably, but they only give it 2 stars. And then they proceed to give every other Ringo album since 3 stars, with the exception of the Santa Claus, which they give 2. Now, most Ringo fans, I think, universally think that Time Takes Time is, if not his best album, his second best, or in the top 3 at least, or 4, and to give it 2 is a bit scandalous. And I think it was a mistake. I think it was a misprint, because when I read the review, it sounds like it's a 3 or 4 star album. And in the Elton John book, they were giving pretty mediocre albums 4 stars, and with Ringo, they give this classic Time Takes Time just 2 stars. It's just unbelievable. So that's quite annoying. And then, but they talk about later albums like Choose Love, pretty decent album, which I would question. I don't think it's very good at all. It's okay, but it's not half as good as Time Takes Time. I think there's good moments on all the others. I think 3 stars are reasonable, if slightly generous, rating to give Ringo's latter day albums. Between 2.5 and 3. 3.5 maybe, why not? But anyway, that was my thoughts. Happy to have it, don't get me wrong. Thoroughly recommend it for any of you interested in the Beatles' solo careers. Pick up these 4, and then pick up all the others. Pink Floyd, Oasis I picked up recently, Led Zeppelin, Fleetwood Mac. They're all out there, waiting for Supertramp still, but they produce them thick and fast, so I think we're going to get all the music we want, really, within a few months or a couple of years anyway. Thank you for watching. See you next time.